Hey guys, what's going on? This is Matt Winning at winningstrength.com. And this video today is part 2 of adaptation. But before we get into the video, please like, subscribe, and I want you to comment below on exercises that you know for sure you've probably overused for far too long. The big topic today is muscle confusion, and a lot of people either refute or totally agree. On a conjugate note, the way we train, I tend to believe somewhat in muscle confusion, although the definition I would say is not necessarily muscle confusion in of itself. I find that it's more accommodation. I think accommodation really stands for what muscle confusion is trying to explain, and that most people get incorrect that I want to talk about today. If a person uses strength training and they employ the same load or the same exercise for too long, over a decent amount of time, which we'll get into later in the video, performance gains will decrease. So again, if we straight bar back squat for a period of time as a beginner, an intermediate, or an advanced lifter, different parameters of what our scope is at that point being, are we just starting out lifting? Are we have 2 to 3 years of hard training under our belt, or we've been training for 8 to 10 years? Those are very different equations for muscle confusion or accommodation. But I think that today we'll be able to dive into a little bit of this and hopefully help you make better decisions on your training. We need to understand what accommodation is. So if accommodation may be slightly related to muscle confusion, it'd be a good idea if we know the definition, right? Well, it's a biological law, okay? So anything in biology follows a similar path to this type of mindset. And the definition is decreased response of a biological object to a continued stimulus. This means the same thing over and over and over again. Eventually, the body just creates almost a blockage to getting any better or increasing any performance. This is difficult because I think what we like to do is we get certain rep ranges or certain positions in squatting, benching, deadlifting, or other exercises that we really like to do, or maybe progress fast. And so then we like, well, I really like to do this exercise, Most males, when you walk into the gym, everybody wants to bench press, and most people ignore the squat rack. Am I right? But the problem is that doing the same exercise over and over and over again eventually starts to create stagnation and a decrease in performance. This is where you see people get really frustrated for multiple weeks, months, and possibly even years or decades. When I go back home to where I come from in Indiana, I'll walk back into the gym after not seeing anybody for a year and everybody's stuck in the same spot. And then I ask them, hey, what are you doing with this exercise or that exercise? And it's the same answer I got a year ago. So similar mindsets and exercises will over time create similar or decreased results. And so we have to change up what we do. So if you learn anything in this video, is that accommodation should be a stale point in your training to making sure that you understand that rotation is key for progression, especially as you work up the ranks in strength. Now, in the first video that we talked about, we started to learn that there were limitations to the quantitative variables. So what are quantitative variables? Well, that's how many reps and sets or total tonnage that you do in a workout. We should hopefully know by now that we have time limits on how long workouts should be. I find it interesting that the top tier workouts on Patreon will get people, actually had somebody message me today about it and go, can I put extra work into the workouts? Which automatically tells me they probably are used to massively overtraining and not getting any better because they're focusing on the quantitative part of the workouts versus the qualitative part of the workouts. The rotation of movements and the optimization of the quantitative variables, i.e. reps and sets and tonnage per week, month, or just workout, is insanely important, but it's not the only variable, and I would argue to say it's not the most important variable. So usually what we start to find is what is optimal and how do we get to optimal training by utilizing accommodation, or what most people call muscle confusion. Now, this is difficult because in the beginning, we need more simplistic movements, right? We need to squat a little more, we need to deadlift a little more, and we need to bench press a little bit more. But the problem is that at this level, most people don't do research and find a skilled coach to teach them proper movement patterns and fix imbalances with simplistic exercises before complex movements are addressed, right? I'll give you a case in point. We look at things like CrossFit and we watch the CrossFit games and everybody's like, oh man, it'd be really cool to power clean like that. It'd be really cool to do snatches like that. It'd be really cool to do a lot of these other complex exercises that they do. But the problem is that those take multiple years of motor patterns in order to develop correctly, i.e. we need hamstrings, we need glutes, we need lower back control, we need core stiffening and bracing. We need all of these different factors in order to do these movements correctly. But a lot of people don't think about the baseline and then end up creating big problems down the road or even worse, injuries. So what I find is that when you're a beginner, the most important thing is technique. Now, these are just some general guidelines that I've used with ultra beginners. I'm talking people that have never seen a gym before, all the way to the ultra advanced. So I feel that beginners usually need about 8 to 15 weeks of consistent training in order to start really learning how to do the actual exercises. Now, this can be way longer or way shorter depending on if this person's an ex-athlete. But if you're a stone cold beginner, for the first 3 to 4 months, you should just be learning the technical aspects of lifting and fixing imbalances. The next thing is intermediates. So I think in intermediates, maybe year 2 to year 4, you're probably going to need to change up what you do at a minimum of 6 to 12 weeks, meaning that you can't stay in a hypertrophy block for more than 12 or so weeks. You can't stay in a powerlifting or strength block for more than 12 weeks. And by blocks, I mean mesocycles. And that is where the manuals come in and train you in different ways at different periods of the year. For example, when I broke Tom Platz's squat record in 2022, I did a hypertrophy block for 12 weeks. Then I did a power building block for 12 weeks. And then I did a peaking phase for 6 weeks, allotting me 24 reps at 520 pounds. The point is that if I were trying to just train for that 520 for 24 right off the rip, I would have completely burned out by week 8 or 9. But by splitting up the training and slowly ramping my body up to that particular goal, it was not easy, but it was doable. And so what I find is that, you see this all the time too. People are going, well, hey, I maxed on my bench and I got 250 last week, and I tried this week and I only got 235. Well, the muscle confusion or adaptation or accommodation should tell you why that happened. So I hope this video has kind of opened up your eyes to why you're going to need accommodation, or what the layman people call muscle confusion, in your life. Now, I don't agree with muscle confusion as its standard definition. I think accommodation makes more sense. And this makes more sense in a lot of the texts that we post on Patreon, a lot of the books that we post there for the library, and things of that nature. But it also makes sense on the workouts that we do on the Patreon app and the Train Heroic app, and even in the manuals. We tend to only work on things in certain blocks of training and then switch the modalities right when the body's about to completely adjust to the movements. The amount of time on this is variable, but I find that it's very, very common that most people stick at certain times, and you want to change your training before you stick at all. So this is Matt Winning at winningstrength.com. Hope to see you guys soon on either Patreon or on the website, grabbing some manuals. Talk to you guys soon.